I recently had a comment on one of the videos that I had uploaded where an individual had asked me to define what making it means. So I'm going to try and use the next few minutes in this particular video to talk about what I think making it means. Let's get into it. Hello everybody, my name is Travis Mark. I am the host of the Musician's Mentor podcast and now the Musician's Mentor YouTube channel. Regardless whether you are new to the channel or returning, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button while you're here. It allows me to continue to get some really great guests on the Musician's Mentor podcast and overall is just truly appreciated. Thank you. So let's talk about what making it means. To do this, I'm going to backtrack and tell you a little bit about my past and then attempt to bring it forward to the exact moment that I remember my mind set potentially starting to change in regards to this topic. So flashing back, I've been in bands since I was maybe 15 or 16 years old. It's been a true passion of mine. I still play in many bands and it's how I've made my living. But the difference between how I think about bands now versus how I thought about bands when I was say 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, maybe up to about 23, 24, was when I was that age, I thought that making it meant that I had to be rich, famous, and surrounded by the celebrities and touring the world and just, up in the clouds, never coming down. And I don't want to mislead anybody and say that I was not trying to pursue that. I, in many ways, was. I was in bands that got signed. I was in bands that did some really nice things. So the idea of that was always very appealing to me. But somewhere along the line, my mindset started to change. Whether that was coming through age or just life happening, I'm not entirely sure. But I do remember one of the pivotal moments that made me start thinking differently. And that was in my late 20s when I decided to book in a couple of private lessons with British-based drummer Craig Blundell. Before I go any further, those who don't know who Craig Blundell is should check him up. He's an absolute master of the craft. He currently plays with Steve Wilson from Porcupine Tree, and he's involved in a host of other projects. For many years, he was also Roland and Mapex's main clinician. So there's a good chance you would have seen video clips of him without even realizing it. Anyway, nonetheless, I booked in these lessons with Craig, and on my first lesson with him, he says, well, what do you want to learn? By this point, I've already been playing for many years. I've played a couple clinics myself. I've got several endorsements, and I've been in some bands that have even charted. So the question was quite interesting to me because I hadn't given much thought to what I wanted to learn from him. And so I thought about it for a few minutes and I said to him, I don't necessarily want to learn anything specific. But at that point in my career, I had started to notice that sometimes I would get inside my own head and freak myself out when I saw certain musicians, especially name musicians in the audience. Hypothetically, if I had a friend who was playing in a bigger band and they just happened to be in town and maybe come to where I was playing, I would suddenly think, well, I need to overplay, or I need to do this better, or I need to show that I can do this really cool chop, whatever the case was. And what that did to me mentally was actually screw me up. And I would usually unknowingly screw up the gig a little bit because of it. So I said to him, this has happened a couple times and I don't really know what to do. Maybe you can help me with that. And anyway, as you've seen in previous videos, I've spoken about keeping your schedule with diaries and calendars, etc., etc., etc. So Craig says to me, well, are you getting gigs? I say, yes, I'm getting gigs. And I show him, I say, look, I got my diary right here. And he asks if he can look at it. I say, sure, I give him the diary and he starts paging through it. And at that point in my life, very similar to this point in my life, I'm gigging almost daily. And so he's paging and he goes through weeks and he goes, dude, like you're quite busy. And I say to him, yeah, I'm busy. I mean, like I'm lucky, And he goes, so why are you freaking out if other musicians are coming to watch you? He said, if you're busy and they're able to come and watch you, that means that they potentially aren't gigging for the night and you are. So he goes, dude, you've made it. And I kind of chuckle and I'm like, yeah, sure, I've made it, you know. I said, dude, no, you've made it. Look at you. You've been on all these world famous drum magazine covers and you're playing with Steve Wilson and all these things. And he says, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. Those are accolades which I celebrate because I've achieved them. But in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't mean I've made it. So I said to him, well, what do you think making it means? And so he turns it back to me and he goes, well, what do you think making it means? And I go back to the teenage version of me and I'm like, well, you know, riches and fame and all these things. He's still paging through this diary as he's asking me a few questions. And one of the questions he asks me is, are you able to pay your bills every month with all these gigs? I said, oh yeah, easily. I mean, I'm in a fairly decent position, I think. And he goes, dude, you've made it. Do you know how many musicians would kill to just be able to play their instrument and pay their bills? And I'd never really thought about it like that before. I mean, I know that sounds really narrow-minded, but I was just doing music because I loved doing music, much like I still do. I love doing music. The fact that I get paid for it is a complete bonus. Anyway, we finished the lesson. We focused on a few more things, but the seed was planted. And I proceeded to go home and think about it a little bit more. And over the next few years, think about it even more. And so how I define making it at this point in my life is that there are different levels. Yes, obviously there is that rock star celebrity status kind of level that a lot of musicians are trying to get to. And if you're one of those musicians, good luck to you. I truly hope that's what you achieve, if that's what you want. But there are other levels. There are some musicians who are just happy to play their instrument at home, and that keeps them sane. There are some musicians who only want to work until they can get an endorsement, and then they get that endorsement and they feel proud of themselves and they've achieved their goal, so they've made it. You know, what defines making it to you is not something that I can potentially answer. Only you can answer. But in a crazy world where it's getting harder and harder for musicians to make a living, where it's getting more and more competitive for musicians to actually get work, I'm at this point, and I thank Craig for it, that I think how lucky I am. I still love trying to create music. I still love playing. I love the fact that it keeps me on my toes and I get to play music with so many different people in so many different genres and walks of life. I mean, I've played music with people from all over the world at this point and played in places all over the world that I never ever would have dreamed I would have got to. So, am I a rich, famous rock star? Not even close. But I get to play music with people I care about. I get to play music I care about. And I get to financially be stable, which apparently only 1% of the music world is capable of doing. Now, I don't know if that's true. And I'm not trying to flex on that if it is. And maybe it's just my mindset because I'm getting older, but is that not making it? Because to me it is. So I really hope that helps you think about what you perceive as making it. And if you haven't quite reached the goal you initially set out to do, just try and remember all the things you did achieve on the way. You know, I've said this before in one of the earlier videos I put up. If you are aiming here, very least case scenario, you might end up here. You know, best case scenario, you could land up here or even further. But just enjoy the journey. The journey is the making it part. So many people fall off along the way. And if you're still there, dude, you've made it. I'll see you on the next one.